Philip John Smith, born 10th of July 1965 in Gloucester, England, is an English spree killer serving a life sentence for the murders of 3 women in Birmingham. A former fairground worker employed at the Rainbow pub in the Digbeth area of the city, Smith killed his victims over a 4-day period in November of 2000, befriending 2 of them at the Rainbow before carrying out the crimes. All 3 victims were mutilated almost beyond recognition, but Smith was quickly identified as the killer because of the overwhelming evidence linking him to the deaths. Smith's first victim was Jodie Hyde, a recovering butane gas addict whom he had met at the Rainbow before killing her hours later. He thought to have strangled her before setting her body on fire near a recreational ground. 3 days later, he met mother of 3, Rosemary Corcoran, at the same public house, and then drove her to a rural location where he bludgeoned her to death and drove over the body. Sick individual. Then, as he drove home, he hit care worker Carol Jordan with his car and, fearing capture, he beat her to death. All 3 bodies were discovered soon after the murders were carried out. Smith was apprehended after he contacted West Midlands police saying that he wanted to make a statement about Corcoran's disappearance. At the time, however, her body had not been positively identified, and the inquiries quickly established that some aspects of his accounts were false. The murder inquiry, named Operation Green, uncovered a large quantity of strong evidence incriminating Smith. But at first he denied responsibility. He maintained his innocence, and as his trial began in July 2001, but later in the proceedings changed his plea to guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. The motives for his crime were unclear, but police who arrested him believed that a lack of permanent sexual relations was a contributing factor. Detectives also investigated the death of a woman who had been a colleague of Smith's at the Rainbow, Patricia Lynott. A divorced mother of 2 from Ireland who had moved to Birmingham had been found dead in her flat in October of 2000. Police had not treated the death as suspicious, but they discovered her connection to Smith. Her body was exhumed for a second post-mortem. This proved to be inconclusive, and in January 2003, a coroner's jury in Birmingham recorded an open verdict after hearing that the cause of her death could not be determined. Smith moved from Gloucester to Tewkesbury and then Ross-on-Wye, where he lived with a female partner. They also had a son in 1990 and 2 more children in 1992, but Smith left the family and moved to Cardiff when the relationship became difficult. He then spent a year in Ireland, lodging and travelling with the family, who took pity on him while he was hitchhiking in Athlone, County Westmeath. He told them he was an English gypsy visiting Ireland, and they allowed him to live rent-free in a spare caravan. While he contributed a portion of his unemployment benefit towards food, the family asked Smith to leave when they became uncomfortable about sexual remarks he had made to young female members of the family. Smith moved to Birmingham at the end of 1999 and stayed briefly at the Trinity Centre, a hostel for the homeless in Digbeth, before moving to a property managed by a housing association in Braithwaite Road in the Sparkbrook district of Birmingham. He became well known locally as a regular patron of the Shamrock Cafe on Stratford Road and of the Rainbow pub in Digbeth, where he was employed on a casual basis as an odd jobber and served as an unofficial taxi driver for drinkers. Smith received over 30 criminal convictions for minor offences beginning in May of 1984, when he was fined £100 for theft. His record also included handling stolen goods, burglary, driving without a licence, but no violence. At 6'4" and weighing 22 stone, with a dishevelled appearance and a soft West Country accent, he was considered gentle by those he met. In an interview with the Birmingham Evening Mail following Smith's trial in 2001, Jim Smith, proprietor at the Shamrock Craft, said he was a gentle giant we named Bigfoot because his boots always used to leave black marks on the floor. 99% of the time, he had a dirty appearance and looked like he had been working on a car. On November the 8th, 2000, Smith met 21-year-old Jodie Hyde, a recovering butane gas addict from Allen Rock, Birmingham, at the Rainbow pub, where they were seen leaving together. He took her to a hospital appointment and later killed her. Prosecutors believe that he strangled her at his flat and then dumped her body near a recreational ground near Golden Hillock Road in Sparkbrook, where he set it alight. The still smouldering remains were discovered at 6:15 a.m. the next morning, 9th of November, by 2 patrolling police officers. The body was barely recognisable and had to be identified using fingerprints. Subsequent post-mortem concluded that she had been strangled before being rolled up in a carpet and set on fire. 3 days later, Smith met Rosary Corcoran, a 25-year-old mother of 3 from Castle Vale, at the same pub. And again, they were seen leaving together. It was on CCTV later that he had dragged her into his vehicle. He drove her to Worcestershire before bludgeoning her to death and running over her body near Droitwich Spa. Her face was unrecognisable and the attack was extremely brutal. She was found at 8:30 a.m. on November the 12th by a man walking his dog in a lane near Junction 5 on the M5 motorway. Smith's third victim was Carol Jordan, a 39-year-old care home worker and mother of 6 from Borsalleaf, who he killed as she walked to work. Smith hit her from behind with his car while driving back from Worcestershire, fracturing her hip. Fearing that he would get caught, Smith moved her to another location and beat her so much that her dental records were required to identify her corpse. The body was discovered at 8:50 a.m. on the 12th of November on Parkland next to the Bell Barn Road, Lee Bank. When staff at the Rainbow Pub told Smith of Corcoran's disappearance on the 13th of November, he telephoned the police at Castle Vale saying that he wished to give a statement. Significantly, his call came at 4 p.m. before the body found in Worcestershire had been positively identified as Corcoran's. And within an hour, Smith had presented himself at Castle Vale. Detective Constable Ruth Wilkins later recorded Smith's phone call. He said he would like to come to the police station to help with an inquiry that he had seen Corcoran on Saturday night leave the pub with an unknown man. He insisted he would like to come over to the police station, and he had been asked to contact the police by someone else and give his mobile number. In his subsequent statement, Smith admitted to being at the Rainbow Pub with Corcoran and the male friend, but claimed they were later separated when they went to another pub, the Kerryman, and the male friend was ejected. Smith said that he and Corcoran then went to Monte Carlo's, a nightclub in the Handsworth area, and that they went home sometime later. Corcoran was confronted by a man he described as a teddy boy, with whom she had argued at the Kerryman. Smith says that the man became aggressive, so he asked Corcoran if she wanted to go home. Claiming that she told him she did not, he said he then left her. The murder investigation, named Operation Green, was led by Sir Edward Crewe, Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, and included 100 police officers and 50 support staff from the West Midlands and West Mercia forces. Detectives viewed hundreds of hours of CCTV footage, gathered more than 100 separate exhibits, and interviewed witnesses. Evidence was analysed by scientists from the Forensic Science Service in Birmingham. Martin Whittaker, the scientist who headed the FSS team, spoke of the huge volume of evidence. The team pulled together every strand of forensic evidence to create a kind of spider's web, and in the centre of it all was Philip Smith. In 20 years of working for the FSS, I've never had to deal with so much evidence in relation to one suspect. It was quite overwhelming, said Mr. Whittaker. Although Smith maintained his innocence, detectives quickly gathered evidence linking him to Corcoran's death and those of the other 2 women. Witnesses have seen him leaving the Rainbow with both Corcoran and Hyde, and he was the last person to see them both alive. CCTV footage from around Birmingham showed his distinctive car visiting key locations linked to the investigation, and even captured Hyde getting out at one point to visit a chemist. Smith was seen buying petrol from a filling station and driving near the area where Hyde's body was later discovered. Corcoran was then seen on camera struggling with Smith outside Monte Carlo's. CCTV footage showed him driving around Bromsgrove, a town close to Droitwich, after killing Corcoran, and later footage showed him returning to Birmingham. At least 2 witnesses record seeing Smith with blood on him: a motorist who saw him buying petrol and another who spoke with Smith about his appearance. Smith told the latter that he had been in a fight, although he had no visible signs of injury. In addition to the witnesses and CCTV footage, there was substantial forensic evidence linking Smith to the murders. Investigators found over a dozen blood stains on his car. on his clothing and in his flat, all matching the victims. There were blood stains on the boots with which he had kicked both Corcoran and Jordan, which he was still wearing at the time of his arrest. Smith had tried to clean his clothes in the bath of his flat, along with a pair of trousers belonging to Corcoran, and a bag containing items belonging to Hyde was discovered outside. Detectives matched the tyre marks from his car, which had 4 different types of tyre, to the Worcester murder scene and to Corcoran's body, over which he had driven. Paintwork and fragments of glass found on Jordan's body matched those from Smith's car, including a broken light cluster which he had thrown into the boot of his car. Smith was charged with Corcoran's murder on the 17th of November 2000 and remanded in custody the following day. By the time her death had been linked to the killing of Hyde, police interviewed Smith in connection with the deaths of Hyde and Jordan on the 28th of November and charged him with their murders 2 days later. While awaiting trial, Smith was held as a Category A prisoner in the high security Woodhill prison in Buckinghamshire. As briefly mentioned earlier, Patricia Lynott. As a result of their inquiries into Smith's background, police launched an investigation into the death of a 4th woman who was discovered to have links to him. Patricia Lynott, a 47-year-old divorced mother of 2, had moved to Birmingham from Athlone during the mid-1990s. On October 23, 2000, she was employed at the Rainbow pub as a cleaner and to look after the licensee's children. She was found dead in the bedroom of her flat on Maxstoke Street, Borsley Green. Police believed that at first she had died of natural causes. A post-mortem failed to establish a cause of death, and her body was returned to Ireland for burial. Because Lynott had worked alongside Smith at the Rainbow, West Midlands Police wished to re-examine the cause of death. In early 2001, investigators asked Irish authorities for a new post-mortem, and on March the 8th, Lynott's body was exhumed by the Gardaí from a cemetery in Athlone and taken to the City Morgue in Dublin for further examination by Ireland State Pathologist Dr. John Harbison. However, the results of this autopsy also proved inconclusive. An inquest into Lynott's death was held at Birmingham Coroner's Office in January 2003. The hearing was told that marks found on her back and arm may have been bruising, but the pathologist who conducted the original post-mortem could not be sure how she had died, because her body had lain undiscovered for up to 7 days. It was also said that despite her connection with Smith, police and 4 pathologists had failed to establish that Lynott had been murdered. The coroner's jury returned an open verdict. Police also conducted a routine re-examination of other unsolved murder cases dating back 20 years in the area where Smith had lived. Officers from West Midlands Police held a conference in October 2001 with representatives from several other forces, including West Mercia and Gloucestershire, to share information about unsolved murder cases in their areas. Detectives interviewed Smith 3 times but refused to answer their questions. No further charges were brought. Philip Smith was born in 1965 at the maternity hospital in Gloucester, where he grew up. The son of sawmill labourer Henry Smith and his wife Rose Smith. He was the oldest of 5 siblings. Smith's family lived in Midland Road, where they were neighbours of serial killers Fred and Rosemary West, before moving to Hales Road in the Coney Hill estate in 1971. The family had a modest income, and their situation became worse when Smith's father was injured in a motoring accident. Smith attended Coney Hill Infants and Junior School and later went on to special school for children with learning difficulties. He left school at 13 to join Billy Danta's Fun Fair, which toured extensively throughout the United Kingdom and also employed his father. He worked out a season as a farmhand, labourer and security guard. Can it be a coincidence that a same road can produce 3 serial killers in different times? Man and wife, Fred and Rose West, and now Paul Smith. Could there be something in the water? Who knows?